Discovery.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome to the PodcastDiscoveryShow, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast. At the end of the episode, we're going to have a brand new recommendation, and we'll talk about that one next week. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we are talking about one of my favorite Halloween shows, and it's Spooked, which is the special seasonal series or show podcast from our friends over at Snap Judgment. And specifically the episode that I recommended was Don't Wanna Fright No More with Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes and her haunted house.
Get that song out of my head the entire time listening to this thing.
Yep. I will say this about any time we listen to Snap Judgment or Spooked, I am such a huge fan of their sound design. All of it is so good. Snap Judgment's kind of famous for that storytelling with the beat, and they kind of have this undercurrent of subtle music that kind of keeps it moving. And they do the same thing here, and then they add the sound effects and things like that. It just sounds amazing every time I listen to anything they produce. So I was listening to it, and I was having a great time. It made my trip to the DMV much more enjoyable.
Ooh.
He's a party animal on his Mondays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DMV is party animal status, right?
Oh, yeah. So every episode, just like on Snap Judgment, Glenn Washington tells like a tiny little baby story that a lot of times it has to do with the theme of the episode. This one wasn't quite to the theme of the episode. It was just kind of a story. I don't know how he still has stories. They've got probably like 300, 400 episodes. How does he still have stories to tell?
Storytellers never run out of stories.
But he tells a story about his best friend in Michigan where he grew up, and his luck, and how he always have this, this ridiculous luck. And so was the point of the story at the end saying that he was wishing that his friend would lose luck or like would have bad luck for once?
Yep. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I was kind of like, wow, that guy's just kind of mean. Yeah, it was that whole story goes through the whole thing, and it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. So is he saying that he's magical because he can
bark
his
anytime he
friend's
wants?
life isn't as good now? Yeah. I was like, well, that's not fun. His poor friend might be magic, and then he's just like, nope, I'm magic, and I'm going to use mine to hurt you.
I'm pretty sure that we've never said this on the show, but Matt, me and Zach met Glenn Washington in real life, and he's actually a very nice guy. He's not a bad guy.
No, he was super nice.
Listen,
and
maybe he cast some spells on it. You don't even know.
I mean, there's a chance of that. There would be no way to tell, really.
Exactly. Have you guys found parking in good spots recently?
Never again. So I think that's really his thing, is he really hates people that find parking spots. It's less about like anything else. It's just that specifically.
Exactly.
This is completely off topic. Well, it's not really off topic, but are you the kind of person that gets very optimistic and goes and checks the front spots? Or are you just the kind of person that just like, I'm just going to go to the middle of the back, just assume I know there's going to be a spot available there? What kind of person are you?
See, I am. It's not because I want to park anywhere specifically. I always try to park away from everybody just because that's what I do. In Florida, I always try to find shade. So if there's no shade,
1000%. That's good. That's a good
exactly.
call.
And then we're also in Florida, so I try to park away from everybody so they don't hit my car.
Yeah, that too.
And that's me.
In general, I don't mind the walk. But the other day, I actually had the opposite experience of what I was describing when I came to your show, Matt. I parked directly in front of Ferg's during the Rays game.
That's insane.
Literally,
that is insane.
Basically impossible parking is what it is. There's a sports bar downtown walking distance from the baseball stadium. There was a baseball game happening, and I parked directly in front of it. And I would never look there, but there was no spots anywhere because we were like we're going towards the playoffs and everything like that. So it was slammed that night when Matt had a show.
That is crazy. I'm impressed, and I would consider you magical. Now, that's the only
I'm definitely
explanation.
the kind of person that always checks the front spots, and I've been lucky a lot. Like it's just like you just gotta be patient. Maybe make 2 rounds, and then you someone leaves, and you get a good spot. I make it kind of like a game. It's kind of like a thing. Like, all right, how is the parking spot going to be today? And it's a fun little game that I do in my head.
Sounds fun.
All right, so back to the actual podcast we're talking about. So
I do have one quick question.
Okay, go on.
I see in the notes that says Britannia Howard. Is her name Britannia?
No, it's not Britannia. It definitely corrected what I was spelling. I spelled Brittany so wrong that it.
At first glance, I thought it said Britannica, and I was like, that's definitely not it. Okay, sorry. Go back. I just saw that. I wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, it's definitely Brittany Howard, not Britannia. I'm pretty bad at taking notes and then realizing how many mistakes that I made along the way. But what did you guys think about the episode?
So good. The way he set it up was really nice. Again, we talked about this the last time. It's never like scary to me. But this was such a good story that it was just like, yeah. And the fact that it's her from the Alabama Shakes, it's like, oh, cool. You kind of get this like little inside. Yeah, this is where we kind of started too, in a haunted house. It was just fun. It was a fun listen, and the sound design, albeit not scary, was definitely creepy.
Yeah.
She said a few things in there that I thought was really interesting. One of the things that she said, talking about like starting up and, like being all, broke and trying to find your dream. She said struggle meal, talking about like eating like bread and a can of corn.
Yeah, I felt that to my soul. And, my struggle meal was peanut butter sandwiches.
Mine was tortillas with sriracha and honey in them.
Oh, wow. That is a special one.
It's good.
No, that sounds interesting. I want to try that now.
It's not bad.
And I did not expect her voice. I don't think I've ever heard her speaking voice. I haven't seen them I haven't seen them live. I've only listened to their music.
Worth watching live. I mean, even if you go find something online, she's really awesome.
I did not expect that to be her speaking voice. It's just so normal, and it doesn't have that, because her singing voice is so like soulful powerful. And like powerful. Just sound like a regular. She even still sounded just like a regular college kid, when she's telling this story, and because that's basically what she was during this time. And so, for those that didn't listen to the episode, she basically, in her later teen years, probably into her 20s, her mom and her, and living next to her in their duplex, her great grandma lived. And so they all moved into this duplex together. And her great grandma ended up passing away. And then her mom left because she had got remarried. So she was there all by herself. And crazy stuff started happening. And I'm someone that's I'm really good at imagining things. And when someone tells a story, me like putting myself in their shoes. And I just could not wrap my mind around what I would do if any of these things happened to me.
Yeah. And she did bring up a really interesting point in this, is that like, if you don't have money and your house is haunted, you're staying in your house. You're staying in the haunted house.
This is probably one of the main discussion points I wanted to have about this whole thing, because it's like an angle that I've never really thought about. And with every meme, every story of, just, they talk about just leave, you got to move, whatever. But it's not as easy as it sounds, you know?
It is not.
That's not how real life works. And so it got real bad. First of all, I want to say, I thought it was hilarious how Spooked found this story, is that there was an article about Brittany in the New Yorker. And, you know, the New Yorker, they're super long articles. And I guess two sentences or a paragraph just tangentially mentioned that the house that she used to live in was haunted. And she's like, we need to find out more about this. So they contacted her and got her to tell the story. And I thought that was great. That's such good journalism, man.
Yeah.
You know, you find this little nugget of what you are focusing on, and you try to get her to tell that story. And it turned out great. That's the thing, is like, I was worried when I saw that it was a celebrity guest. I was like, oh, come on. You know, usually when you get a celebrity on, it's because of their name.
Yeah, it's hit or miss on whether they can actually deliver it.
And that doesn't mean they're a good storyteller, but she was a really good storyteller. Like,
that struck me immediately, how great of a story she put together for this. And she was funny throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. I loved how it really read like a horror movie, like a tropey one, where she's like, the door would creak open and then my grandmother would or my granny would pop out with ice cream cones.
With an ice cream cone.
Ice cream? And it's like, I can just picture that moment where it's like someone peers around the corner and it's like, arm goes on your shoulder and it's like, ice cream, you know? And it was like, oh man, I'm right there with that story.
It's like a jump scare that you thought something bad was going to happen, but really, it was just grandma
and the
with
cat and all that stuff. Yeah.
That is what it always makes me think of, is the cat from Alien. Because that the cat's like the most jump scares in the movie.
Cats are insane. I just have to say this. They are always so scary, because my girlfriend's cat sitting right now, and I was over there and we were hanging out with the cats, and then just randomly this cat will be like meowing so loud in the other room and just like staring at nothing, and you're like, come on, man. What are you doing? And then they'll get all scared and it's like, well, nothing happened. What are you doing? Stop it.
Yeah, cats are wild cards.
Yeah, they really are.
Right. So there was a bunch of different things that happened to her while living in this house. But I want to ask you guys, what did you think would be the scariest thing if it happened to you?
Probably the door, like closing and locking. That would be unsettling for me, because I wouldn't. Here's my thing. I would like to say that I'm skeptical, but I hope that these things exist. We've talked about this before on the show with all these different things, UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever. I am skeptical, but would it be awesome if Bigfoot and ghosts existed? Yes. Yes, I would love that.
It would make life a lot more magical.
Yeah. But I always kind of view things through the lens of, how could this be explained by something normal that's not a ghost or a Bigfoot? And so that's the one that, like, if you're just sitting there and the door locks after making a bunch of noise and there's nothing there, I'd have a hard time explaining that to my brain.
Yeah. I was leaning towards that one as well, because all of the other ones I feel like can be kind of explained. You know, you can explain it away, at least in your brain. You know, she was falling asleep and she had that feeling of someone grabbing her foot.
Well, you have that weird thing. What's the name for that? When you're right about to fall asleep.
Oh, no.
No, it's when you're right about to fall asleep, you hit this weird place where you're halfway conscious and halfway dreaming. And that's when, like, you get that, like, that thing where you like jerk awake because you feel like you're falling, or you get all these weird little things happening.
She described
that
it
really
didn't happen,
or she didn't experience it.
That cozy, squishy place, because it is it is like a special time of falling asleep where it almost feels like you're having the best sleep, but you're not really asleep yet because you're aware of the rest that you're getting. That's the thing.
I'm very familiar with that, laying on the couch watching a thing and then getting to that place, because you're like, oh, I could get up and turn this off, but I'll be awake. And you're like, so you just sit there and then, like, you coast.
Try and stay right in the pocket.
You're like,
my favorite,
I'm gonna stay right here.
My favorite nap or favorite going to sleep is when it surprises me. You know, it's like you're just watching something and then you're like,
and then like, me too. You're driving to work and then you just fall asleep.
What? Don't do that, kids. Don't do that. No, but the one that you mentioned is probably the one that would bother me the most long term. Yeah, I think that was probably the least scary, like jump scare type. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the one that's like the most unsettling in the long term of like, there's something really unexplainable going on here. Because it was a deadbolt type lock, the way she explained it. One of the ones that you have to like pick up and move it over.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. She could have gone out that door and then it accidentally locked itself after.
Yeah.
You know, the physics don't really make sense there. So yeah, that's a weird one for sure.
Yeah. And see, my brain immediately goes to the one of hearing footsteps outside, only because this happens to me all the time. I'm very like auditory. Anytime I hear a noise, I'm that guy that would be in the horror movie that dies first, because I'm like, I have to find out what that is, or else I will not be able to sleep or relax until I find out what that is, because it's probably a reasonable thing. But hearing that repeatedly and being like, I don't see anything, I would like lose my mind.
It would bother me a lot. I definitely agree that if I just heard footsteps outside all the time, it would bother me a lot.
And because that's so tangible, and like her mind went immediately to where mine would is, oh, that's someone that's going to break in and possibly hurt me, which is a very real the machete thing. Yeah, exactly. Which is just like what I do. Yeah.
The only weapon I had in the house was a machete. It's like, why do you have a machete in there?
So this whole thing escalated for her. Like it was not just a little bit. Like, and that's the thing that I really took away from this is how real this was for her. You know, like this was not some joke. This was not something like spooked her a little bit when she was alone in her home. She like would leave and go stay at her dad's house. She ended up buying a gun because she was scared of the footsteps in particular. She said that she slept on the couch and she had a gun underneath the couch at all times. And I love how she's like, she heard the footsteps the second time. She's like, oh no, I'm ready now. she goes to the door with the gun and the flashlight. And, but like, that's what's crazy to me is like how much this really affected her. She was saying first of all, she gave up her room because a lot of stuff was happening in her room. So she's like, well, F that. I'm sleeping on the couch. So she slept on the couch for it was like 3 years, I think she said. So she slept on the couch, but then she also said that she had trouble going to sleep because of stuff going on. So she would sometimes not go to sleep till like the sun was coming up.
Dude.
And that's just like,
and that's a vicious cycle you get in because you're exhausted.
How much more of this stuff could be attributed to sleep deprivation, you know?
Seriously. Yeah.
But she wasn't the only one that experienced stuff either, though.
That's probably the other crazy part is that her bandmate had the thing whisper in his ear too. And it's like, I got to get out of here. Which, I mean, to be fair, if you go over to a friend's house and stuff starts whispering in your ear, it's like, okay, I'm going to leave now. Thanks for the invite. Bye.
I did love the way she framed it. She's like, well, I'm going to go too. Like, what? Am I going to stay here?
Don't just leave here.
Jerk.
Big burly dude. And he's like, nope, I'm out. Bye. You're by yourself. And she's like,
I heard a whisper in my ear. See ya. What? What? Like, okay. That was great.
Yeah. Overall, just really fun story. She's a really great storyteller. And it was just the same old Snap Judgment, amazing production. It really, you can't go wrong. Listen to any Snap Judgment, listen to any Spooked. It's going to sound amazing. They're great storytellers. It's just overall fantastic. And something new that we haven't gotten to talk to Matt about. Matt, do you have any unexplained things you've experienced in your houses growing up?
You know, not really. I do remember this one thing that really wasn't scary or anything, but I used to wake up in the house that that I grew up in like Palm Harbor or something. And not every morning, but every morning I would get up, I would go into the like front room or whatever, and there'd be this glare on the wall. It's just like this little dot, which is like so unassuming and dumb or whatever. And I probably could just never find the source of it. But I would like walk around and like put my hand up everywhere that I could imagine. And I could not find the spot that it was bouncing off of, creating that glare. And then by a certain time it was gone. So it was like, it was so weird to me. It's probably the dumbest thing, but also when I would do that, a bird would come and peck at the window as well, which was so strange. Every morning, this bird would come and peck at the window when I do this. It was so weird.
That's a weird combination of things. Neither one of those is crazy by itself, but the fact that they go together is a little weird.
Yeah,
I know. And I'm a little obsessive. So it's like when I see that glare, I'm going to I put my hand right up on it, and it's like I could not find where it was coming from. It was very strange. Other than that, everything that creeps me out like that, because I'm the guy that's like, I got to find out what this is. I usually find out what it is.
Yeah, I've only had, I think my current house is the one that has the most unexplained one to me. I was just walking to my office and my bathroom is like on my left-hand side. And as I walked past, I didn't open any doors. I walked past my bathroom and a crayon rolled from inside the bathroom a full foot into the middle of the hallway. There was no one else home. And I was like, okay,
what?
I'm not going to go in there right now. I actually did. I had to look in there. You know what I mean? Because I was like, okay, that's weird. And so I looked in there. There was nothing in there.
What?
I remember you told me that. That one's freaking. I'm sorry.
That one I was like, I think I just told my parents like, oh, it was the wind. Don't worry. Wind just blew a crayon out of the bathroom.
That's
so. I don't know if I've told you this on the podcast. I know I've told you this in person. Well, we may have talked about it on the podcast. We've talked about so many things on here now.
It's hard to remember at this point.
It is hard to remember. But at this house, which now we're moving, and I'm really hoping that, first of all, I've always felt like there's some bad mojo in this house. It's not like, this isn't like a super old house where like old people a long time ago died or anything like that. We know the people that lived here before. But there's always been just this weird vibe here, just negative vibe. And then also in my bedroom, we have one of those fans and lights that has a remote, right? Well, for a while, and this has not happened in over a year and a half, maybe 2 years almost, in the middle of the night, close to around 3 a.m., the light would turn on all by itself. So me and my wife would be asleep, and then the light would just turn on. And we would it would happen so often that she would just like wake me up and I'd have to go press the button, turn it back off. But we're like, wait a second. We're asleep. It's 3 a.m. The only thing we could figure is that like somehow, and we only have one neighbor, that the neighbor next to us had a remote similar and somehow it would turn it on. That's the only way that I could try to explain it.
Yeah, I can see that. I would say that to myself too, for sure.
But if that's what happened, that guy's got a really strong remote because it's on the other side of my kitchen and my dining room through walls to get to his room, to get to his house.
Yeah.
Wow.
Plus outside and all that. So I don't know. That was weird because that's not what happens when I lose power. So it's not like I lose power and it came back on and the light turns on. That's not how it works for that, because that happens a lot. We lose power a lot because it's Florida and thunderstorms. But yeah, I don't know. I can't explain it really. I've tried to explain it in my head, but I am excited to get out of this house.
Yeah, I get that. No, but I mean, in the end, like my childhood home had a murder in it. And
I remember trying to scare each other in that house.
Oh yeah, no, and that's probably part of the thing that kind of like made me mostly immune, is because like I walked through that house at night. You know, after my mom passed away, I went and that was my office, and so like I was in that house by myself a lot, and so like if I can handle that, crayon doesn't scare me. But yeah, no, overall, fantastic show. I always look forward to, this is the one that I always know that I'm going to love, because we try and do it every year. And honestly, I wouldn't mind just doing a snap judgment every year too, just so I can,
It's just
so we can talk about it again.
I'm actually a little bit behind on my snap judgment. I haven't listened to some of the newer episodes. Well, this is what I like to do, is I like to let them make 10 or 15 episodes before I listen, because I'm going to listen to them in 3 or 4 days. and I love to wait till there's a little backlog so that I can catch up. But
I get that.
It is really great. And I've been listening to it with my daughter because it's Spooked in particular. because they're not like super explicit or like really bad stories.
No.
Like most of them are like this. And I mean, she's 12. She's not like a baby. And so she likes that kind of stuff too. And we've been listening to it on our commutes, and she's been enjoying it too. I think we've listened to like 6 or 7 of them now. And she loves it.
But yeah, fantastic show.
Yeah, very good.
And in my ongoing quest to scare myself, I was once again unsuccessful. So I completely pivoted. Well, not completely. I'm still doing something spooky, but I promise you I tried. I really tried to scare myself with a podcast. I couldn't do it. I'm going to keep trying because we probably have one more week of spooky times. But I did find an episode of Stuff You Should Know that is all about how vampires work. So instead of it being like a spooky thing, we're going to dig into the folklore and the myth and the origins of all of this stuff that has turned into True Blood and Twilight and all of these things. So we're going to learn all about kind of some of the history.
Centric episode of spooky stuff. That. I like it. It's very on theme. And it's not just another, I mean, I'm not saying I don't like scary stories. It just makes it a little difficult to talk about. So I like this because I think there's a lot of discussion to be had.
There is a lot more to talk about.
The only thing that's difficult about this time of year, I love it, but it puts a little bit of an extra burden on us to try to make a discussion off of someone's story.
Yes, this is going to be easier because vampires were mentioned as far back as like 4,000 years. So there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of culture like behind the myth. And so it'll be, I'm hoping, a good one.
That's awesome. So what was it again? You said Stuff You Should Know?
It is Stuff You Should Know How Vampires Work. And it's an old episode. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Just like me.
Well, awesome. I'm excited. An oldie but a goodie. And remember,
there's always more to discover.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.